Today on the Ever Onward podcast, we have Debbie Critchfield. She is the Superintendent of Public Education in Idaho. Debbie is a dear friend. She comes from Oakley, Idaho, fourth generation Idahoan, 4 kids, was on the State Board of Education, and now has been our state Superintendent of Public Instruction. She is unbelievable. She's doing some amazing things in Idaho, and the results are showing. We are on track to have record numbers in several areas of public education. Really happy to have her on and get an update from her on what's next in public education in Idaho. This is going to be fun.
Well, thank you.
One of my favorite people in Idaho.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's
thank
true.
You. Just how I asked you to say it.
You're killing it, Debbie.
Well, we're working hard. I always say I don't want anybody to outwork me.
That's never going to happen. But my goodness, it's been fun to watch you do it because you're just education. Like it's a big thing. We spend a lot of money on it.
And it's also, this sounds cheesy, but it really is about the future. I mean, the classrooms, our kids, they're our future neighbors, business leaders, mayors, community support.
And it's complicated.
Yeah, we got to do it right.
You got to do it right. It's hard. So I can't wait to get into this with you and understand what great things. But before, a lot of people listening may not know you as well as I do. So Debbie Critchfield, our state superintendent of public education. Oakley, Idaho, 4 kids, lifetime of service in education.
Yeah, I'm not a certified teacher, and so I come at it from a different perspective. Parent that had children going to school, and I wanted to be a part of supporting the classroom and the teachers, and from that, got really interested in policy and decision making and local school board to State Board of Education.
Yeah, and talk a little bit. It's interesting. Oakley, Idaho, is just an amazing place. I mean, right now of our constitutional officers in the state, you and Lieutenant Governor Bedke are from there. But Oakley's got this rich history of lots of things, and it's kind of cool. It's a great place, but very small town feel. Very, we talk about one of the things we'll get into today is education's different around Idaho. I mean, I didn't appreciate that at all until I ran for governor. I just didn't. I mean, you grow up and you know what you know, and you kind of just see what you see, and then all of a sudden you go and visit all these little towns and look how public education has to be delivered across the state. And it's got its own challenges. So I think it's also refreshing that you come from a rural perspective, because I think you have to have solutions in a state like this that meet all needs. And I don't think people appreciate the complexity of that.
Thank you. That is a part of the position that I think we need to talk about more. So here's just some numbers to support what you're saying. 60% of the student population of Idaho live in the Treasure Valley between West Ada and Boise, but 70% of our schools are rural schools. And finding that sweet spot of what are those foundational things that we expect that everybody should have that aren't contingent upon a zip code are really important. And then as you look at policy and other laws, it's going to play out a little bit differently because of access to resources and just community expectations. Last year I take tours around the state to go to the schools, and there's a one-room schoolhouse in Lohman, and last year they had 3 students in the school. One of them has to take a snowmobile in the winter to get there. They all happen to be 3rd graders. And the day that I went, 2 of them were absent. And so the teacher and I had a great little conversation. And she lived in and I don't know if she still does this year, but in an RV on the playground, just right there at the school. And so we talked about how she does what she does. And then you contrast that with coming back into West Ada or Boise as an example, and going to Mountain View High School, largest high school in the state. And how do we do this in a way that kids get what they need and parents have what they expect?
And I think that you're hitting the nail on the head is like funding formulas. Just different ways that policy settles out affects everyone, and that's where the challenges come. Because, I remember, so I met with, I can't remember the exact number, but it's 80 something districts with their superintendents.
Pretty good.
And it was good. And I remember just sitting there listening, because I had kind of my standard questions I would ask. And in one day, sometimes you would go from a large district, medium, to a small district, and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, it's almost like watching challenges or a train wreck from three different perspectives, because they all had their own challenges, but how do you come up with solutions that make that work? That's why I think it's so incredible that you've done what you've done with your history of being on the state board and then now our state superintendent of instruction. The results are incredible, Debbie. I mean, I think a lot of them.
I'm so proud of them.
I think a lot of the things that it was one of my passions, one of my reasons why I ran, is I thought, oh, K-12 higher ed, how do we do things? How do we scale things? How do we grow? How do we make a difference in the world? So I really dug into it, and I've watched you do a wonderful job. So talk about some of the things you've done.
Well, the theme that I had getting into this really is two things. One, getting back to basics. We had over time, and not just Idaho, but nationally, we had gotten away from some of those fundamental effective learning strategies. And I'll call out phonics as an example. For reasons we don't want to get into today, nationally, we got away from teaching our teachers how to teach phonics. And we know that phonics is the most effective way to teach learners, even for those who show characteristics of dyslexia or other learning issues. And so I've been talking a lot about the science of reading, pardon me, and that encompasses phonics. There's more to it, but it's just kind of the easy way to say that. All right, well, if we're going to improve our reading scores, what do we need to do? Because if it were just a book, I'd say the state of Idaho, let's buy everybody this book. But it's many things. It is the books that our students are using. It's how our teachers are prepared. So I've really taken a comprehensive look, again, kind of maybe overusing phonics or reading. I've gone to the colleges of education and said, are you teaching our teachers how to do this? And then how are we supporting them with professional development while we're there? Local boards, are you making informed decisions around the curriculum that you're buying? Are you structuring your day? So it's all of these pieces. And now we've layered in coaching for our teachers that are already in class that maybe didn't get the instruction because they've been out of college for a long time. And so we've kind of built this support system over the last couple of years. And this past spring, when our students were testing, that's when we're saying, okay, all those seeds that we were planting, all that work that we were doing, we've got 70%, I think it's 71% proficiency in reading for K-3. And yes, we've got room to grow, but we've gone up with kindergarten alone. We went up 13% in a year. Statewide, we went up 11%. So these things work.
Can you talk a little bit about why that's so important? So all of the national studies and data you read on life, just life, they go back to that K-3 reading proficiency as the thing that if you can get a kid reading
by third grade,
it's this like milestone thing that's really significant in the education world and in society, that's a critical thing. So people have talked about it for a long time. The wonderful thing is we're heading in the right direction.
We are.
And that is not like a gradual slope. Is dramatic increases.
It really has. We've been just growing, and as you've pointed out, third grade is that benchmark year. The difference is we're learning how to read up to third grade, and then fourth grade and beyond, we're using reading to learn.
Yes.
And there's no second prize for adults or anyone that doesn't know how to read. I would not care if nothing else was learned through the whole school experience. We got to make sure kids can read.
Yeah.
And all the things that we do, lowering class sizes, that actually has an impact. That's why you'll see K-3 around the state. They try to keep those class sizes as small as they can, not 5 kids, but they don't typically want over 20 so that teachers can go in and have that instruction. And a lot of what we do with our teachers is helping them know what to do with assessments. So we test the kids, and then a teacher will look and say, the kids in my class aren't doing so well with some part of learning. It's now what do I do with it? So we look at the assessment, and then we want them to be able to make decisions on how to adjust so that they can get that. Those first critical years are important.
Which is not easy.
No, because you got 25.
I think One of the
kids
other
coming in.
appreciations I got was, and it was like and I knew this from my own kids, right? So we have 2 biological kids, we have 2 adopted kids, kind of the split family. Adopted kids had significant learning disabilities, so they were on IEPs, and so I had a lot of knowledge as a parent who has raised children of how this kind of thing works. But until I actually got out and started talking to people that are dealing with the challenges of in that room of those 25 kids, you have them for a few hours a day,
Yeah.
and then you have these breaks, and you're the one responsible for getting them proficient. But then they all go home to different houses, different backgrounds, maybe their English is a second language at home. Maybe, you look at their social situations and the stability there. You look at the support they're getting from their parents or grandparents, and all of that's different. Yet you have these teachers that have to almost come up with an individual plan.
That's exactly
with each
right.
one of their kids, and have to have the knowledge and training. And by the way, that's hard. I love our teachers. One of the things I walked away with is going, oh,
they're hard jobs.
Yes.
They are. And then you add to the mix other social pressures, adolescence, puberty, hormones, all of those things. Let me share with you some things that they sound negative, but it's not intended to set a stage that is negative, but it's the reality of where we are with kids and families today. I really don't want to say most. More and more kindergarten students are coming to school that have never held a pencil, that don't know how to write their name, that don't recognize colors, that don't know letters, but they're very good at swiping. And so I hear from kindergarten teachers all over the state who are now starting not at the level that it used to be. There was an expectation that, yes, when I'm sending my kid to school, I'm going to have helped them learn some of those things, or I will have put them in preschool or something that will have given them a little bit of exposure, or they know how to stand in a line, or they know how to take a turn. We now have a kindergarten class this year that is our COVID, we're calling them COVID babies, that has been a completely different 5-year experience for them coming into a classroom. And so we're starting from a different place. Now, the CDC, a year or so ago, actually reduced the requirements or the benchmarks for certain age development. It used to be that, at certain ages, these were the expectations. Well, the federal government has reduced those, and that's again a different story. But there's a different kid coming into the classroom and different expectations of parents. And you throw all of that together, and then we say, make them read.
I can't imagine anything more challenging.
Yeah, but also we know our teachers have a real heart for this, and that's why they got into it. There is a science that goes into teaching. We know what those strategies are. It's a recipe. It's not a secret, and we want to get that everywhere. But there's also the art of teaching and the heart of teaching.
Well, and talk a little bit about, I'm going to jump all over today with you just because I've wanted to hear you go into some of these things, but it's got to be incredibly discouraging and disheartening if you're the teacher. And sometimes when we talk about education and the challenges we have with education, having that finger feel like it's being pointed at me, where you have these passionate, compassionate, wonderful people that go into this career because they want to teach. Like they're just some of the best humans on the planet, right? And then somehow when we talk about these challenges, they're the bad guys. And it would just gut me. I'm just like, oh my word. No, that's not the case. That's, so talk a little bit about that, about how wonderful the teachers are.
The value of teaching, the most important component of a classroom is the teacher, period. And having an effective, prepared teacher with the right tools and strategies is a game changer for every kid.
Yes.
Every kid can grow. Every kid can do better than when they started. So thinking back to COVID, there was a time, if you recall, when we shut down and we weren't sure what was going on. Okay, we're going to pivot to virtual. Some were still in. But parents had more of an influence and had more of a responsibility for the education. And for about a month or so, teachers were the heroes. If you remember that, teachers were the heroes. And then we had the shift where then, wait a minute, this is what you're teaching our kid or this or that. We had an interesting shift where parents began to doubt some of the instruction or maybe some of the books, which that's its own thing. But somehow in talking about the policies or what the decisions at a high level had been, we then kind of victimized, well, not even victimized, but villainized is the word, teachers, that they were bad guys, that they're trying to indoctrinate our kids. And if you talk to a teacher who's in a first grade class, they're going to say indoctrinate. I could barely get them to sit down
Yeah.
write their name. We're not spending too much time indoctrinating. Now, I get that, as you go through, you get more mature kids and different conversations. But, for the most part, that's not why our teachers got into it.
No, I love that. Hey, jump into one more thing. So you've said a few things today that I love. And one of the challenges, I read a book that was called The Answers in the Room. And it stuck in me because it talked about how hard it is to scale in education. But usually within a school, there's one room that was excelling, or within a district, there was one school that was excelling, or within a state, there's different, there are different answers that are really working. But how do you take those things and scale them? So what is most interesting?
We are doing that. Yeah.
We're not?
We are.
We are. You are.
We are.
So one of the most interesting things about your success is how have you been able to scale the successes across the state?
So exactly what you're talking about. We go and we look at high-performing districts, high-performing classrooms, and we look and say, okay, here are the elements. These are not mysteries. These are known recipes. And then we matchmake to districts or charters that look like each other. To our very first point, the demographics, we are geographically spread out, but we are also demographically diverse in the state. And so looking at economic factors, the experience of a teacher, there's other variables that we may not be able to control, but there are some things we absolutely know work. So when we see a district that is struggling with reading, as an example, and someone that has a similar makeup to them, and we can look at that through data, then we say, we're going to match make you two, because this is what they've put into place. And then we remove the excuse, well, they have more money than we do. No, they do not. Or they have better teachers or more experienced teachers. No, they do not. You look very much alike, even though you're in different parts of the state. You can do the very same things.
So you control the controllables and try to match it so that you're trying to, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. Because I think that was the bottom line of the book, is if you could ever figure out how to scale success within cohorts, you're going to get there.
And we're seeing it. And as an example, New Meadows last year, their reading growth, they're the winners of the most growth in a school year for their elementary kids for reading. They grew 34%.
Wow.
Well, then people say, well, what are they doing? They're doing the things that we have said, here's what works. And you have a leader who gets behind it. That's the other part of this conversation that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about previously. We put all of the responsibility for all of the change, all of the decision-making on the teacher. So obviously, as a businessman, you know what the levels are. You are not going to hold the person who is laying the brick accountable for the quality of the brick that comes in or the conditions around which she does that. And so we're saying, look, leaders, building administrators, school board members, superintendents, you need to own this. You can't go to the teachers and say, okay, go do it. What have you provided in the conditions so that they can be successful?
It's got to be refreshing for the teachers to hear that and see that and watch that happen.
I hope so. I got a card from a teacher that I do not know, and I get a lot of mail. It's people like to tell me things, which is great. Sometimes they like something I do, sometimes they don't. Anyhow, this teacher that I did not know from Pocatello at an elementary sent me a thank you card in the mail saying, thank you for implementing this certain coaching that we've brought in. She said, I wished I would have had this 20 years ago as a teacher. This has changed how I feel about teaching. I feel supported. I feel, that type of thing. And obviously it made me feel good, but I know from stories of teachers talking to me, what we're doing now is changing the culture of teaching.
Love it. Love it. If I had to, and we didn't do any prep before this, but if I had to ask you some of the biggest myths, so for our listeners that are out there wanting to learn from you, what are some of the myths that still exist out there about public education in the state of Idaho?
That we're failing.
Yeah, you know where I
I'm
think
gonna
that came
start
from?
there.
The one statistic that you always heard where we're 49th or 50th out of 50 in funding.
Right.
But I think one, it was super self-defeating always, because it was always, you'd read the fine print, it was in funding of kids.
Right.
Right? It was never that bad anyway, but if you look at what the value of our education in
Number
Idaho.
one. We were ranked
Yes.
number one for the return on investment.
So explain that better than I am.
Well, essentially, it is for the money that we put into it and the results that we're getting, there's no better value across the country. So we were rated number one on that. The other thing where we start to go up is if you look at education as a percentage of our total budget. That's the other statistic. So we say, oh, we're 48th in funding per student. But if you look at us as a percentage of our overall budget, we zing right up that ladder.
That's critical too. That's really critical.
So
we're comparing ourselves to states that spend double, triple the amount per student.
kid.
And so it looked like
that don't get the results. So it's like
then
Idaho.
if you looked at their percentage of investment in education, we're higher than that.
Yes.
So
yes.
so based on a it's just math. It was never, but I think those negative connotations to education and how we're doing stuck.
Well, and it's a narrative that creates doubt and people start to lose confidence. Now, what I found is if someone talks to me about that in a community, they believe it's out there somewhere because they love their local school.
Yeah.
I hear that, like, oh, education, there are so many things wrong with
not at my
education,
school.
but not at my school. And so I say, but in Idaho, now I would agree that there are issues that I am glad we don't have to deal with in our state, that I talk to other state chiefs and I think, oh man, am I glad I don't have that problem.
Yeah.
We have some of our issues, but if you're only getting your news about Idaho from a national source or you're reading online blogs about what's happening in other states, you don't understand what's happening in our own state.
Yeah.
So let me add a couple other statistics while you're thinking. Our graduation rate is the highest that it's been in 10 years.
Okay.
We were just rated number one in the country for students that are involved in career technical education and are getting a dual credit for that.
I love
number
this.
one. And I want to talk about our preparation piece, career tech, but we're number one in the country for that. Number one for the return on investment. We are among 8 states in the country that have more than 50% of our students taking a career tech class. We have 72% of Idaho high school students are involved in some sort of vocational career technical training. So we're in the top 8 nationally for that.
I think that's been a grand slam. It's one of our passions. So we started a nonprofit 5 years ago,
Yeah.
Teens to Trades. We're now 5 years in, and we have watched really cool things happen. Our latest initiative we started last year is called Tools for Teens. So we have a $500 scholarship that anyone can apply for.
Oh, nice.
And it gives you $500 at D&B stores around the valley. We partnered with Mark Schmidt, the CEO.
We'll promote that when you're ready.
So we're ready.
Okay.
It's live. But what
Okay.
I'm getting to the point because I've just got goosebumps right now. We launched it a couple of months ago, and we've already had our first about 150 applications for this grant.
It's awesome.
And in partnership with DeWalt Tools, they actually get more than the $500 because of the deep discounts DeWalt gave. So you can have a student going into, and we've stuck with welding, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. We've kind of narrowed it there. But Alex has been calling all these kids because they have to fill out a little essay. They have to apply.
That's
They have
okay.
to do an essay, what they want to do with their life. She keeps coming in my office and going, "Oh, you just got to hear this story." And there's these stories. So my point is, it's real. It kind of fits a little bit with our heritage too, because I think we're kind of a blue collar farming, ranching, get it done. And I think the last time we had an initiative, which was this Go On thing,
Yeah.
I think it was self-defeating for families in Idaho because they're like, go on to what?
Right.
And
I think the
this
messaging,
time,
it was the right idea.
It was the right idea, but the messaging was.
Yeah.
And this time you guys nailed it. I think
Well,
launches nailed it. I think
yes.
CTEs nailed it. I think it's something you should be very proud of because it's not easy to brand and message something that then gets into the hearts and minds of the families of Idaho and makes a difference. And it's happening.
So I think in understanding where Idahoans come at this particular part of education, I think it's rooted in the dignity of hard work. I think
100%.
that's where we come from. And I think that is lost. And I'm not one of these people that is like, our generation now, they're all, going down the tubes. I don't believe that. Now, there are significant changes in just how people want to work. Our younger people, we got to get them retrained about the dignity and the value of hard work, the value of skills, and the power of having a intentional pathway that this is what we're going to choose. So I came prepared with some stuff. This is the other part of my passion about what I do, the preparation piece. We can do a lot of things. We're not educating kids so that they can do well on a test. We are educating kids so they can do something for the rest of their life. I don't care what that thing is, but I want that diploma to mean something. I want them to have confidence that I can now go take advantage of all the opportunities that are available, particularly in their local communities. That was a real issue for me. For many years, and I'm going to say it was probably close to 30 years ago, for sure 20 years ago, there was a message or just a vibe in the Cassia County area, and I think other places in the state, for kids that were growing up in ag communities or in the trades and some of these things, that if you want to be successful and have a good paying job, you can't live here in the local town.
Amen.
You can't live here. I'm like, what? And we are changing that. And so we're saying, absolutely, you can. Don't ever tell a kid they can't be successful. So how are we doing that in the education realm? 2 years ago, I went to the legislature. I had this idea several years ago. And again, one of the things driving me to be in the position was on this whole topic. We want to keep kids where they want to be. Don't tell them they have to leave their community or the state. And I know our governor has said that. We want kids to stay here. And if you've left, come back. So Idaho Career Ready Students Grant was something that I put together and went to the legislature and got some funding on. The whole idea around it, and I don't want to say Shark Tank, but it's sort of Shark Tank-ish. We wanted schools to come to the committee and pitch and present an idea for an expansion of a program or a brand new program or something that increased participation in a program that, were it not for money, kids had a connection to a local business or industry. Now, it had to be sustainable because this was money to get you going. You had to have the teacher. You had to show that the kids wanted to participate and that there was some sort of attachment to, again, the local business. We had, the first year we got $40 million, the second year, 20. Between those 2 years, we had $140 million worth of requests.
Wow.
We have been to so many ribbon cuttings over in the last 6 months because all the shops are coming online, the programs. So I got to get my glasses on because I want to share this with you because I think it is so important. So in the last 2 years, we have funded through this grant 8 ag education programs, and this is all over the state. 5 ag food science and processing, 2 ag mechanics, 7 welding and mechanics, 4 animal science, 14 automotive technology, 3 business marketing, 6 cabinetry and bench carpentry, 4 construction, 3 cybersecurity, 5 diesel mechanic, robotics, drone technology, EMT and firefighting, 3 engineering technology, an ecology and natural resources, 7 forestry programs, 7 health occupations, 3 industrial maintenance and mechanics, law enforcement, 2 machining and precision machining programs, 5 plant science, a paralegal, and 18 welding programs.
I love it.
In 2 years.
I love it.
What was the difference?
Wow.
This is where I don't always say everything is fixed in education with money. For career technical education, you have to have the resources. It is more expensive to have a welding program than it is a PE class.
Yeah.
It makes sense. CNC machines cost more than a basketball. And the resource part of it, the return that Idaho is going to see of having skilled kids leaving these programs is going to be exponential. And then you add launch into that. So now they are informed decision makers who can now say, oh, hey, I've got a 1 year or 2 year certificate, or I'm close to the certificate. Now with launch, I can go and do any of these things, or they can go right into the career.
Well, that's beautiful. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but we talk about career tech, but this Career Ready Students Grant, I believe, has been a game changer and will be a game changer for kids. This is thousands and thousands of kids.
Well, and we think a lot about our kids and the future and changing technology and AI and what it's going to be, but I see it as an opportunity for Idaho kids because we moved to CUNA a few years ago, and I've spent a lot of time really getting involved in that community. It's much more of it's more rural, like just the people, my neighbors. And what I tell those kids when I get to go talk to the high school a couple times a year is you have an advantage. You are going to kick butt out there in life because you know how to work.
Yeah.
You know how to use your hands. You
That's
know how to do
part of what we
things.
do with this too. It's not just the training,
you have you got this Idaho heritage and DNA that you go do stuff. You have the social skills and the soft skills to interact with people. You have a work ethic, and then we're helping with this line of sight to jobs that are right here. You don't have to leave.
Yeah, I love it.
With the boom so one of the things, you go back 20 years ago, and every committee I was on, we talked about how do we get more jobs? How do we get higher paying jobs? All our kids are leaving. How do we keep our Idaho kids here? It's all anyone talked about. That has been, it's been one of the secret successes that's happened here. No one talks about that anymore because you can keep your kids here. But now it's just, how do we have great state leaders, government leaders that help us with programs that allow our kids to have the line of sight to jobs that are here and make those connections? That's really what it is.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
we're talking a lot of K-12. We're talking a lot of CTE. But it's the same for higher ed.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you start going higher ed, it's like, what are the jobs in our state that are desperate? For the currency now for business is people. And how do we connect those people, our kids, to our jobs, whether it be in development or healthcare or the trades, but how do you keep them here? And it builds stronger families. It builds generations of families. We have problems like housing now. We have all our other things that we talk about now.
Which I absolutely,
which is
I think is probably the number one problem in Idaho. I always tell people education is not a problem in Idaho. We're getting that job done. The number one problem really is affordable housing. And it touches into teachers. There is not well, even here in the the Treasure Valley, you get outside of the Treasure Valley, and one of their teacher shortage problems is related and attached to the housing issues that they have. First of all, there's not the inventory, and if there is the inventory, the teachers can't afford to live there. So that's another. So I absolutely care about that conversation because it is impacting how we get and where we get teachers around the state.
I don't know the answer to this. Can you talk about current recruiting and retaining of
Yeah,
teachers?
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you, and this is different than what you hear. Idaho really does not have a teacher shortage problem. We have a teacher distribution problem. So, and housing is a part of that. But let me give you a statistic. So on average, I'm going to use BSU as my point of reference. They graduate around 300-ish students in the College of Education every year. Of that number, 90% of those that graduate 90% go right into the teaching profession. And then of that number, 90%.
What percent of the 90 stay in Idaho?
90%, not even Idaho, 90% of those that go in from BSU stay in the Treasure Valley.
This is exactly why it's so important to have
They're not going out.
Higher ed and all of these things so intertwined with our community and our needs.
We have to strengthen the pipelines within our regions where we have the colleges. And I know we've got a lot of opportunities for people to come into teaching that didn't go through a traditional route, but the bulk of our teachers really are going through traditional pathways, and that's great. But we need to get them out into rural areas. So you go talk to, and in this case, I'm not even talking about like Stanley, although, that's an issue. Some of the places where we can't where they can't get teacher housing is Grangeville. Now, yeah, that's rural, but Grangeville is a decent sized little town, right in north central Idaho. And our school leaders are having to turn a little bit into landlords. If a manufactured home becomes available, districts are looking to see how they can purchase homes that are around that they can afford so that they can make that a part of the package. Otherwise, they can't get the teachers to move there because they can't afford to pay for the housing. In Cascade, I was there a couple weeks ago, not Cascade, McCall. I was there a couple weeks ago talking to their superintendent, and a couple years ago they built some housing, affordable housing, kind of duplex type things, and they offer that as a package where they can get a teacher into the community and kind of get them in a financial position where after a year or two they say you can only stay here for a couple years, and then we got to move you out so we can get new people in. And it's not just somebody might say, well, of course that's McCall. That is not just McCall. It is literally anywhere. You go up to Sandpoint, Lake Pend Oreille, St. Mary's. I was in St. Mary's a week ago. They're telling me the exact same thing. That the price of homes has exploded at such a rate everywhere that you can't, and not just teachers, but frankly, Idahoans cannot afford to live in their communities anymore.
It's the number one issue right now.
I absolutely believe it's number one. And I love that people want to talk about, education and all the things that we need to do. Great, let's keep talking about that. But in my view, affordable housing is really the issue of the day. And it does get into teachers.
Yeah, and that just is it's a hard problem to solve because of one, cost of goods, right? 2x4 costs more than it did before. Regulation, despite what everyone says, I get so tired of hearing people talk about, hey, we need housing, and then you go through any of these jurisdictions right now to get anything done, and they can't help themselves. When we need less regulation and more encouragement or incentives to get more housing out, it's the exact opposite. And then the real death. The nail in the coffin for this whole discussion is now you go, okay, let's go get government subsidies for housing. As soon as you bring government subsidies into the free market, it just drives prices up, not down. And so I just don't think people understand free markets.
And what that housing thread does to the economy of every aspect of a local town. So I had a conversation recently with a developer in this area talking about how do we blend the public and private where it doesn't become another problem. Like we don't want to create 10 new problems because we were trying to solve one problem. How do we get around the table to address this? And as we look at that affordable housing issue, it does help teachers, but it also has other ripple effects that are going to have positive impacts for all of us.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know what all the answers are, but I'm willing to be at the table and talk about it from the perspective of we got to get teachers out around the state, and we want teachers to stay here.
Gosh, there's so many things going with you. I'm going to tell you, I think I told you a little bit of this, but you get into your world like just doing your thing, and I haven't been involved as much in education issues, but I got invited over to Grace, Idaho, 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
3 weeks ago.
Grace Grizzlies, I think they're the Grizzly.
Grace Grizzlies.
Yeah. Great potato spot.
And it was I spent 2 hours, I drove over and back, and the topic was how do we find a way to work with 3 different districts over there that are right next to each other. They need a new high school, right? Then why I was invited, is there any public-private partnerships that can make these things work? So it was a really great idea. Over the 2 hours, though, I sat there thinking, oh, my goodness, there's just so many things you don't think of in these small communities because you had all 3 of the districts there represented with their superintendents. Mm-hmm. You had all their individual community needs. You had the financial strains and struggles. You had the numbers of students. You just had all these different things going on. But I'm getting to the point, one of the questions I had is at what point in Idaho, or any state for that matter, because one of the things when I ran for governor is that we have way too many school districts. We have way too many school districts. Because if you look at just dollars spent and overhead, and there's a couple of places in the state where you can go and literally you are a half a mile or a mile away from the next school district. And I understand local control. I understand local communities. I understand why it happened. It's not anyone's fault that it happened that way, first of all. It was the way it was, and back when you had these little communities.
We didn't create it, but we're living it.
We're living it, right? Yeah. And at the end of the 2 hours over there, I thought, man, it's just going to have to get worse before people were willing to, because the idea of consolidation came up in this meeting, or not even consolidation of districts. It was only consolidation of resources, and everything was going swimmingly. Yeah. And the second you got to any sharing or consolidation of just resources, Debbie.
It's fighting words.
Then all of a sudden it was a crap storm, like immediately, let alone saying, why on God's green earth do you have 3 school districts? Even if you had 3, you still called them the same thing.
Right.
Why do you have 3 districts? I know this, I just brought up a really tough topic, but
no, it's not tough for me in the sense of understanding the issue. So one of the benefits, I think, coming from the school district that I do in Kaja, I believe we are a model in the state for unification consolidation. So Kaja County is the entire county is one school district.
I love this.
So you have 5 very distinct communities that have a school or share it, and we share a tech center.
They're still branded. But they still have their brand.
We still have the
and
heart
they
of our...
hate each other,
yes.
right?
Oh, yeah. Oakley, Raft River. I mean, come on. And we're in different sports classifications. There are very stark differences between the 5 high schools. But to your point, they own their own school. But we all know that we're a part of the whole. And you have representation on a school board that takes in attendance zones from each of those communities. So my experience as a school board member was, if I'm going to advocate for something for Oakley High School, I'm naturally going to have to take a look at everyone. I'm not just going to say, hey, this is what Oakley needs, and I'm going to walk away from all the other needs. And so we know we have that feel. And so I share that message as we travel around. Now, here's some other issues that I think are related to why this is an important problem. It's not problem, but issue. It's not just the facilities. So we know in Idaho we've got aging facilities. Last year, thankfully, the legislature put $1 billion towards it. But that was towards maintenance and repair. It doesn't touch anything new, anything like that. And so we have aging facilities around the state that clearly is a part of this. The other part is just overall efficiencies within the budget. So if we can find efficiencies through one transportation director or one food service person, one superintendent, there's money to add back into the pot. The other issue that I'm starting to see is the leadership. Our pipeline and pool for superintendents is not as deep as it was. You have people that are retiring. It's a highly political job anymore. They don't want to get into it. Many of our smaller districts, particularly in the north, find themselves in a position where they're hiring from out of state because they can't find anybody local that wants to be there. And so I also think there's a leadership component to this conversation that we could go down and say, how do we get some folks around the table to talk about piloting, being willing to be a leader in their community and stand up and say, hey, there's some places, maybe we could take a look at sharing some efficiencies. And I want to be a part of that.
So if it were in the real world, if it were a business and you were just like, hey, we're going to I just saw yesterday Target just laid off 1,000 people at their Minneapolis headquarters when I was back there a couple weeks ago. So I'm like, whoa. But if it was that way, you would say, okay, the current realities of the economic situation we're in are going to drive us to make really good decisions. We have within our company this Cassia County who has a model that works really, really good, still gives you your ability to feel like you're
your identity.
And then on top of it, what I love is you could say, hey, for any of the money you save by doing this, this consolidation of resources, those dollars can stay with you to help fund some of these things that you need. Seems like it would be a really straightforward decision.
I agree.
And then all of a sudden you get back into it's not as easy
so
as that.
there's a couple of things, and I completely agree with what you've said about incentivizing districts with the financial. The message cannot be, we want you to consolidate your district so that the state can have more money. They're not going to do it for that.
Yeah.
Now, if there's savings to be found that you can now put into your own resources, that I think is something that'll bring people to the table. The tricky part, legislators will come and talk to me and say, Debbie, we got to do this. Okay, do you want to legislate it? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go legislate it because they don't want to be that person that just said, we're going to, combine all of these communities.
It's one of those political issues, though, that no one
behind the scenes, everyone's like, we have got to do something. Yeah. Okay, local board members, as it is comprised right now, they have statutory authority. So unless they do it on their own, I don't have a mechanism to go enforce it. Now, I want to be we want to be at the forefront of the conversation, because to your point, with everything going on, first of all, we should always be finding efficiencies, whether the economic outlook is positive or, lagging or whatever. We need to be looking at that. And to say in Idaho that you have 190 school districts and charters, individual, okay, that's a high number. Also, the other model, to be honest, I think is West Data. You look at them as, think of how they have like 30 plus elementary schools.
Yeah.
Somehow they figured it out, and the high schools have maintained all of their individual identity. And so it can be done. I think it's just changing the mindset changing the mindset that it's okay and you're not going to lose who you are.
Well, and there, change is hard, right? It's the who moved my cheese thing, right? It's hard. It's always hard, especially when you have these, decade-long, this is the way we've done it things. I think the financial reality, my takeaway after 2 hours was, this is not a hard problem to solve.
No.
Well, first of all,
it's a people issue.
It's a people issue. The building issue, if we standardize the buildings in these places,
and I'm supportive of that and have been for years.
That would be like the easiest thing, like no-brainer thing. But until someone has the financial incentives to do something like that, I don't know. That's easy. There's these extra dollars that could help fund the improvements you need. I think there's models within Idaho that are already working. Anyway.
Hey, I'm going to sign you up. I'm enlisting you in the effort. Let's talk about it, because it does have to be, I think, that public-private, because we will solve some other issues when we take a look at how we start to combine efforts.
Yeah.
And it honestly, it does not make sense to have so many so close together. And the efficiencies. And even for places that are a little bit further apart. As an example, I mentioned Grangeville earlier, so that's the Mountain View School District. They actually just recently voted to deconsolidate. So now Kuski and Elk City are going to become their own district, and Grangeville will be its own district. And the way they've done that before has been to, Elk City has been a part of it, and they just, the principal of the elementary in Kuski would drive out, and it's a beautiful drive along the Clearwater River, but nonetheless, it's a long drive. But somehow they still managed. But now we've got these communities that are now deconsolidating.
Oh, wow.
I'm saying, wait. But they're allowed to. The law says that they can, go to a vote in their community. And I think we've got some good things around us to say, let's push our sleeves up and go to work.
And it's beautiful up there, isn't it?
Oh,
Kuski,
it's incredible.
Elk City.
Oh, it's incredible.
That's where I go turkey hunting.
Oh, you can see exactly why, people want to live there.
That's where I shot my mountain lion. And in Kuski is like the greatest Chinese restaurant in all of that area.
Just stop there. Idaho's been discovered. And it's just, we talk about, like I say, we talk about rural Idaho as though it's nobody knows about it, and there's 4 people that live there. Let me tell you, you go anywhere and these communities are growing.
How long have we gone, guys? I can't believe how fast it's going. 50? We haven't even talked about higher education.
We can do another part too.
Can we?
There's so many good things. And this is why the message, I'm always inviting people, like, please share the message that we're doing a good job in Idaho. And, if you're worried about something, go talk to the school.
But in summary, for people listening, like, there are myths out there, and then there are great things happening around our state. There are just wonderful things happening in education. I would say K-12, technical education, higher ed, everything,
absolutely.
And wonderful people. Can we close this thing out just talking about our teachers?
Yes, absolutely. I think we forget that our teachers are also parents. They're also community members. Sometimes we have this attitude that our teachers are sort of this separate element of the community. They are the community.
Yeah.
They're voters. And they got into it because they love to serve, and they love to help kids be successful. And one of the things that I want Idaho to be known for, and our teachers are such a critical part of this, I want success to be so embedded in everything that we do in the educational sphere that a kid has to opt out of their future.
Yeah.
You literally have to opt out of being successful in what you do in Idaho, because we are going to have all of those elements set up in a way, supporting the teacher, helping our leaders be connected to good decisions, that a kid has to choose to fail because we're going to make it impossible for you to do that.
I love that. I would add to that, going through our kids, I don't know that there's anything more meaningful to a family, like just to your family unit as you go through life, right? You have your kids, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses and their ways of approaching the world. I don't think there's anything more meaningful than having a teacher that loves them and cares for them and helps them individually. For me,
I agree.
I mean, I can sit here and think of all my kids and the teachers that changed their lives, that dedicated everything to them to make a difference in their life. And what a difference it was right when they needed it. What a noble profession.
Absolutely. How many times do teachers get called mom?
Yeah.
I mean, I hear that from teachers all the time, that, a kid's not paying attention. And I think it's on that level of care,
Yeah.
and protection that our students know that their teachers care about them.
Unless you've had a kid that's had an IEP, I think that's, for me, because you go to back to school night and you get to know some of the other teachers, especially when they start having multiple teachers in middle school and high school. But when you sit in that room and you watch every one of them talk about all that they're doing individually for your kid, and then you like walk out to the parking lot and sit there and you're like, holy smokes, this is significant. This is really, it's a wonderful thing that we have. Well, you're the best.
Thank you. You are.
I am your biggest fan.
Oh,
I
thank
am
you for
so
all you
excited
do
for
in the
what you're
state.
doing.
The positivity.
So, elections
is
coming up
so
again
great.
in a year.
Yeah, election cycle coming up. And
so you have a primary in the spring, and then you'll be reelected next year.
I like it. Keep channeling that. There's good work to be done. And I like serving, talk about serving. I love serving the state. I love the state so much. And I want to take a turn, and I want to do all that I can to put us in a good place for the future.
Last thing to just leave for our listeners. If they were to go look for data and look for ways to just know what all the good things that are going on, where do they go?
The best place probably is the Idaho report card. It's online. It's just idahoreports.com. And it's every school's report card. It's the statewide look at where we're performing, how we're achieving. And then I think the Department of Ed website, sde.idaho.gov,
Great.
I think is right. But thank you. Thank you for the
Debbie,
support of education. I know
you're the
that's
best.
who you are. So thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks,
everybody.